Hi everyone, thank you for joining and welcome to Blue Triangle's product training. In this session, we have Tim Grant with us to look at how to analyze and optimize the placement and loading order of your third-party tags. Take it away, Tim.
You may or may not know what tag governance actually is. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and I will define it for you today. We're going to walk through third-party tags are on your or services that are on your site, why you should even care whether you have extra third-party services and tag, what kind of vulnerabilities and issues that may come out of that. If you missed our session last week, we'll be publishing a training session. It was really a tag governance review and how to proof your site against vulnerabilities. If you haven't listened to that one, you definitely go back and listen to that one as well. Also, we'll analyze these live in the portal, so if you have another screen you want to follow along with us, you're welcome to do so. So what is tag governance? Simply put, it's a framework for responsibly managing your first and third party tags and services. It should include automation for ongoing monitoring to ensure compliance, optimum performance, and the prevention of security violations. If you're not doing this today, you're probably vulnerable to a Magecart attack. I'll talk about a little bit more about that. This is becoming a new department in many companies that we work with and throughout the e-commerce industry. If you don't have a tag governance person or department in your organization, you should think about suggesting that to the leadership. Third-party tags and services, high level, it's just a piece of code that you put on your site to add, enhance functionality and capabilities. The reason for having tags and services on your site is because there are companies that specialize in doing certain things like retargeting, and you couldn't hope to build a competitive retargeting service for you to use and still stay focused on your business, right? So there are various different kinds of analytics, of course, being a popular one, and we fit into that category. Of course, retargeting, companies like Criteo and some others, replay visualization like Mouseflow and Clicktail and some others, and then product reviews and helping to put content on your site and pictures. And so the list goes on and on and on. Survey, we could probably fill up several slides of all the different capabilities that these third-party services add to your site. It's very powerful, and it adds a lot of competitive functionality to your site. So ultimately, what we're trying to help you do is to continue to use the power of all these third-party services and do it safely. High level, why should you really care about third-party services, making sure that they're placed correctly? We'll talk about site health today, but just so you're aware, unauthorized piggyback tags can lead to being non-compliant for GDPR and the California regulation that's on the horizon here. Problem tags, so things could break your site and interfere with the proper functionality. And then, of course, the data breach. I'm just going to briefly discuss that quickly for you. If you're not aware, several large companies, including Ticketmaster, British Airways, Magento, had some issues as well. So sending data to third-party domains, we can help you with that. Our tag governance has a built-in content security policy builder for you, and this is the avenue of attack. Either they add some kind of code to your first party, to your website, even behind the infrastructure. The Magento hack recently, this is where they added the code. But then we also have vendors that you trust. They've added code to the website. There's also piggyback tags, which you may not have authorized these piggyback tags that a vendor adds to your site. Any of these first or third party pieces of code can get hacked, and then malicious hackers can get your data. But the good news is a good content security policy will help you use the power that's already built into the browser to block these malicious data breaches. Okay. We talked about that last week. It's important to make sure you're thinking about this, because if you're on this call, you're probably interested in understanding how to inventory what's on your site. And we're going to get into the inventory analysis page that's under the tag governance, right in the portal, right under this tag icon. We'll also cover the hierarchy and piggyback analysis to show you what's going on, how a tag is being loaded onto your web pages. So let's dive in. All right, so another big reason you should really care about the tags is tags that are slowing down sites, and they're doing things to interfere with the operation of your pages. One of the things that's built in, if you go into our business analytics and you click on revenue opportunity under your site, you'll see pages that need to be faster. Okay, so what can you do to speed up a page? One of the easiest things you can do is reorganize the third-party content on your site. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to actually show you a few tips on how to actually do that. If we look at your Blue Triangle portal, I'll go ahead and maximize here, and you click the menu. If you don't like the dark color, you can actually change the theme up here. So if you didn't know, you can go to a dark or different shades of dark and lighter screens here. Inside of tag governance, we have several items here that you can be taking advantage of. If you want to know what pages a service is on and how it's performing, you got the service details. And then if you don't know what service a domain is associated with, you can go to the domain details. So we have several new really powerful features here to look at. So for example, I have the service details page open right now. As you can see, I'm looking at this service called AdRoll. I'm looking at this the Blue Triangle site. If you have more than one site, you can click in here on this button and you can switch between sites. Right away, I can see that the AdRoll is present on the features, the home page, the marketing analytics page, and it's not missing from any pages. So this is a very simple example that we have for this. And then if you want to see the different files and maybe this trend out a particular file that's on the site, you can click on the button there and trend the performance of that particular tag. So if we look at how long it takes this particular tag to load, it seems to be doing okay. This is where you can go. These are two new pages, the service details page, as well as the domain details page. It's really there for you to understand what pages is a tag on and what pages is the tag not on. So that's something we've gotten a lot of questions for, and that is here now. And you can do an export from these two as well. Let's start from the basics. Let's look at a web page. Here are all of the services. So now I'm on the inventory analysis page if you're following along. If you go down to the inventory analysis under tag governance, and what we're offering is the ability for you to be able to select a page or a set of pages, create a map of all of the services on that page. And you'll notice that we have the service level detail, the domain level detail, and the file level detail. And I'm just going to quickly explain what we're looking at. So I've got the features page and the home page, and then if I scroll to the right, you'll be able to see more and more pages depending on how many you selected with this query. The shading indicates that this content loaded before the DOM interactive. You'll see that this another shading over here that says this loaded between DOM content loaded and the onload. If it loaded after on the onload, you'll see this darker shading, or if you're in the lighter theme, you'll see that it just doesn't have any shading at all. And if you forget the legends down here, right underneath these tables, okay? This lets you understand and immediately catalog all of the services that are on a particular page. So if I look over in the business analytics and look at revenue opportunity, and I see that revenue opportunity is telling me if I speed up the features page by a half a second, I can get another $1 million a day in revenue. And we see that on a regular basis with some of our really large clients. So what we're able to do is show you how things are loading on the page. You'll notice there's quite a bit here loading before you can even interact with the page or DOM interactive, like for example, LinkedIn. So in this particular example, maybe we shouldn't be loading LinkedIn so early in the page. Maybe we could load LinkedIn maybe after the onload event. Okay, so maybe if we shift the order, it doesn't really change the end user's experience, but we may be able to shave off up to 135 milliseconds off the load time. Keep in mind that LinkedIn, this particular load may be asynchronous. You may not shave off a full 135 milliseconds, but you might be able to shave off, some significant amount. So you look for opportunities like these different third-party services that are loading really early in the page. Typically, things that are loading before DOM Interactive are having some impact on the page load time. Your browser has so many parallel downloading capability. In other words, it can only download so many files at once because of bandwidth restrictions, the number of threads, or the number, the CPU and other resources on the machine. Doing things early in the page before the end user really has the experience of the page load yet may be detrimental to the end user's experience. So just simply moving things like this Font Awesome to later in the page. So we'll look at Font Awesome here in a second. Now, and conversely, you can see the home page is a lot more optimized. We only have a few things loading before the DOM Interactive, and then the page is loaded. This is a side-by-side example. We have a features page that's really not optimized that well, probably for third-party content and loading the page quickly and getting to that onload event fast. And then you have another page that is optimized a lot more, and you have only a few things loading before the onload event. Please think about this before you just blindly move a piece of third-party content to after the onload. It may be important. There may be some information or some critical task that it is doing that it does need to load earlier in the page. So, definitely be careful. And anytime that you make a change like that, you should certainly run it through your QA and dev process to be responsible. You don't want to break the page by moving this. Now that we've identified a tag that maybe we want to move to later in the page, let's say we wanted to move Font Awesome, and I've already talked to the website owner or the folks in development. They're fine. This doesn't even get used till later in the page, so I don't even know what's on there. Or maybe they said, oh, we don't even use that anymore. I thought that was off of the page. In the last month, I've talked to roughly a dozen customers, and either on the phone or in person, that specifically have said to me, I didn't know that tag was still on my site. Anyway, so this is how you can know what is on a page. Okay, so this is one way to look at it. If we want to go directly from here and look at something like the domain details page. So if I come over here and I go to the domain details and I type in Font Awesome, I can select this one, and now I'm going to get a trend. This is very similar to the service details, and I'll explain what the difference is here in just a second. But if you know the domain, you can come directly here. You can get a trend of performance, and as you can see, this doesn't really perform all that well. Not to pick on this one service, but as you can see here, this one service got as slow as almost 0.9 seconds during the 6 o'clock hour yesterday. That's pretty slow for a tag that's loading before the onload event. So this could have had an impact on this demo site. It's good for us to kind of understand. And so we come in here and say, oh, it's only on these 3 pages. Now, one of the things that you may want to know, what pages is this not on? So let's see what pages Monotate is on versus what Monotate is not on. Okay, so interestingly, it's on every one of the pages, so that's great. We know it's on the whole site before you check it. So if somebody says we only want Monotate to be on the homepage, or I'm sorry, the checkout process, let's say, but we don't want it to be on the homepage, you should expect to see like the homepage and maybe a couple other pages that shouldn't be on. And so now you have pages that it's the tag or service is present on versus the pages that it's absent on. And then if we look at a number of other ones, I can see Font Awesome in this particular example. I can see pages that it's present on and pages that it's not present on. So we've got some synthetic monitors that we're targeting on different sites across the internet. And so this is more of a hodgepodge for us so that we can demo this. As I mentioned before, we have over in Tag Governance, we've got the service profile and we have the service details. Knowing which pages that a tag is on is super helpful in this case. And in this simple example, I can see that it's only on 4 pages. Okay, great. But what about these other pages? Should it be on these other pages? And if it should, then maybe we should call somebody and find out. One of the things that we're about to unveil over the next couple of weeks is a notification to let you know a service is no longer appearing on different pages of the site to just notify you. So that's been a popular request from our customer base as well. We looked at the inventory analysis to see in the inventory analysis, I'm looking at the service level. Several services may actually use multiple domains in the delivery of their service. You can see those here, as well as if you switch to the file level view, now I can see that I've got about 163 files on this one page. We limit this by default to 50 at a time, but if you want to look at all of them, you would just click this button here and you can see all of the files. If you need to search on a resource, you could do that, type in fonts. So this is where you would go and find anything that has the word font in it. So I can see now that there are several either domains or files that are associated with the word font. Okay, so that's a quick way to look through and understand where this is. Now, interestingly, this one, this Font Awesome is loading this all.css, and it's loading. It starts to load that at about 70 milliseconds into the page load on average, and then it loads a few other files that this page is referencing as well. And these font files are loading 0.4 seconds into the page load, but they're loading relatively quickly on this particular page view. So now if I look over on this other page, I can see that these files are loading significantly slower. But like I pointed out earlier, these are loading before the DOM interactive, right? So they're early in the page load. So if you can move these to later in the page load, that might be beneficial. But because this is a font file, you probably want this to be here before any text arrives. In this case, it may be a bad idea for you to move this file because maybe the text will show up and then be not formatted for some period of time until this third-party service font shows up. Some other tactics might be to actually load the font yourself and serve it up from your page if you are allowed to do that. So there are lots of tactics to help speed up third-party content as well, and some of those involve combining those files and loading them right directly from your site, or from and then you can leverage your own CDN network to provide that service on your site. The domain baseline analysis, then you can find that underneath the tag governance. I already have that loaded up right here. On this particular page, this home page, I can see that from the second, third, and fourth, the page load time got significantly higher, and then it returned back to the 30-day average. So all of the metrics in our graphs that you'll see in Blue Triangle is that you can select or deselect them from the menu down here in terms of the legend. So you can turn on and off different things. If I just want to look at and see what the onload time in red, and then the 30-day average for onload time is in the dotted line, and you can see that standpoint, the page load time got a lot slower. It went from February the 1st, it went dramatically higher than the 30-day baseline that's in the dotted line there, and then it returned to normal. So what happened on this? So this is a good way to kind of look and see what's going on. These are all of the third-party services that slowed down on this site. You can start to see, maybe some things that are causing problems on your site. And this is where you would zero in. You don't usually see the whole thing light up like a Christmas tree like this, but sometimes you might. You can understand performance. Then some of the other things you can do here is look at the domain level activity report. From the inventory analysis, we know what third-party content is on the page. But when does it load exactly? Let's understand what's blocking what, okay? Because if you have a piece of content like the base page elements that load, if the things that load directly from the web server, like the base document, if that's slow by a second or two or three, that's going to just directly impact everything else on the whole page. As you can see here, the base document actually loaded very quickly, and then you've got Bootstrap that's loading in parallel with other first-party content. And so this is a way to read this, and you can see that Font Awesome is a little slower than a lot of the other content. This is loading so early that it is actually nothing else is loading during this time. Highly likely that this is something that could be blocking other content on the page. It's certainly worth looking into if this was if I was giving out recommendations to somebody, but it's good for our example today. Okay, I don't want to pick on Font Awesome. According to their name, they are awesome. So, but you'll find that everybody has trouble with their tags at one point or another, and this is just a great way to look at this. Now, let me explain what we're looking at real quick. Each block on the domain level activity report, which I have the tab here selected, is representing all of the files for a particular time period and when they typically load from that particular domain. So in the Font Awesome case, you can see there in the green, that is loading early in the page, and then there's a break typically, and then it loads a little bit later in the page. And then you can see other things like this intercomcdn.com, like that one's loading a few different times, as you can see here by this Gantt chart. This is definitely helping you kind of understand when tags and services are active on your page versus the page load time. And this is an aggregate waterfall. One of the downfalls of individual waterfalls that we've been able to get from a really long time, starting all the way back to the early 2000s when Keynote started using this as a mechanism to help you understand how items are loading on the page. What we're doing here now is giving you an aggregate view. So if you're just looking at one waterfall, that's probably not the way to look at it. If we want to understand what's happening at the file level, now I can see all of the files that are loading on the page. Again, this is another aggregate view. This is based on about 501 observations from different things here. Here's 473 observations. So interesting to note is that some of your tags and third-party services may not load all the time. This is one way to look at and see when each file is loading. Okay, so I showed you a minute ago on the domain level. Now I'm looking at the file level. So if you need to move a file, maybe something from a Font Awesome from here to maybe later in the page, you could potentially make a decision on doing that from this kind of view. But this is another way to verify that you are getting blocking activity. And clearly we're seeing blocking activity out of this particular third-party resource. Again, this is understanding what you should probably move to speed up your web page, right? And this is an interesting example. Let's say you want to trend Font Awesome. If I go to the table view and I just find Font Awesome here in so let's look and see. I've got a duration of about 0.4 seconds on this particular CSS file. If I want to trend that, I can select that from here, and now I get a trend of the performance of Font Awesome, this min.animation CSS. So this is a good way to understand how it's fluctuating, and this is, as you can see here, I've got about 7 days selected. So this is a good way to really understand if your third-party content is going off in left field for you. That's available, and again, I have been in the domain baseline analysis. Okay, so one last thing I wanted to point out is our ability to understand how things are loading on the page. And for that, I'm going to go to the hierarchy diagram, right under the tag governance tab, and go to the hierarchy. So I'm going to look at the hierarchy analysis, and I am going to start off at the service level view. If you use your mouse wheel and zoom out, you'll see that I've got the home page for this example, and all of the things that load off of the home page directly summarized for you here. And then we've got this expand and collapse button. So if I say expand all, now I can see the way Facebook is getting loaded. Facebook is getting loaded via AdRoll, but it's only loaded this way about 64.7%, 64.8% of the time. CloudFront, you can see that this particular CloudFront resource only loads 32% of the time, but other things are loading at 100%. DoubleClick is loading 16 or 17% of the time. This is also a great place to go and find out if you've got any piggyback tags. Maybe you won't notice it in the inventory analysis. This is a good way to do that. We are following up our real user monitoring with a synthetic measurement to target specific pages on your site in addition to our RUM, and then we build this data set using that additional measurement. We're able to filter out maybe client-side ad injection and some of those other things. So I'm at the service level. If I go to the domain level, again, the domain level, there may be additional items on the domain level. As you can see, it's almost one for one, this graph, just eyeballing it. There's only slight differences here. And then if you look at the file level, you may see a lot more files. So now we're starting to really get into an interesting segment here. So you can see where Google Tag Manager is adding several other files, lead forensics, and a number of other things on this one page, and then the things that get loaded after that. So you can see that Blue Triangles tag is here. We're identifying 100% of the visitor traffic, and then when there are JavaScript errors, we're reporting those back as well. So that amount of data collection is visible here. And then, how is Facebook events getting loaded? Well, that's getting loaded via this path, Google Tag Manager, and then scripts.com, hsscripts.com, and then this pixel, and then all the way down to Facebook, and then the content that it's loaded. It's a pretty interesting way to load that, and as you can see, we've got some ads from Yahoo and others. So this is a really good way for you to understand how something is loaded on your page now that you're investigating a page. There's several different ways for you to, and powerful views for you to use using the tag governance tag to understand what's happening on your site, how content's being loaded, and what to do about it.
Thanks again to all of you for joining this week, and we hope to see you next time. Have a great day.